Dear student teachers, welcome to today's program. Today we are going to learn a very important area in the field of English language teaching, that is various aspects of period plan. Dear student teachers, we teach English to our students from class 1 to 10. Here our main aim of teaching English is to develop communicative competence in children. Any language is for communication. The main purpose of language teaching is to develop communication in our students, communicative competence in our students. Same in the case of English also. Here, dear students, every language can be learnt. There is no easy or difficult language in this universe. And let us try to understand language and the child. Every child is capable of learning any language without any difficulty. That means language is biologically triggered process in the in child. It is a biologically programmed thing. That is why students can automatically pick up language when we provide appropriate environment to our children. And we follow, in our pedagogy, we follow constructivist approach in our teaching learning process. Here one should construct his own knowledge. That is the main aspect of constructivist approach. New knowledge is based on old knowledge, and that is why we always try to link new knowledge with old knowledge in our classroom teaching. Don't say new things to our children. Always link new knowledge to old knowledge. Don't allow our children or don't encourage our children rote memorization. No question of memorizing, and they should assimilate things, and they should be in the position to construct knowledge. Then only they can construct knowledge constructors. And bear this in your mind, very important aspect, linking classroom teaching to day-to-day life of children. And these are the some of the aspects of constructivist approach. And then we are all teachers. We teach language to our children, and we should know how to teach language, and we should also know how do children learn the language. These two things are very important: how to teach it and how do children learn the language in an easy and effective way. Those things we should have clear understanding as teachers and implement them in our classrooms to develop language competency in our students. See, dear student teachers, now we are in the era of information technology. Now our slogan is learn anything, anywhere, anytime. And we are in a knowledge society. Knowledge and information is available in everywhere, and this knowledge, this information should be utilized in our classrooms for teaching effectively to our students, and we should also make our students to make use of this information and knowledge for their growth. And see, we are in the era of information technology, and here we call it as a revolution. And we observe now, we call this world as is a global village. We are getting many benefits out of this information technology. We should also help our students to make best use of this information technology for their growth, for their development, for their future studies, for their employment, for their movement, for their going across the globe in search of jobs or for learning purpose. For that we should support our children in our schools. That is the main aspiration of the parents, the society, politicians in our dear student teachers. And Google, the students should be in the position to search information through some networks, through some websites like Google, and also we call it as e-learning. now we call e-learning and learning, also mobile learning. And the students should be helped to learn through e-learning or mobile learning. Knowledge and information is there in the mobiles also. And now we call autonomy in teaching. Teachers' autonomy, teaching autonomy, and learners' autonomy. The concept of teacher autonomy refers to the professional independence of teachers in schools. They can make autonomous decisions about what they teach to students, how they teach it. For example, we have some objectives. By keeping our objectives in view, we can make use of different resources that are available outside. We can make use of information technology. No need to confine ourselves towards only using textbooks. And along with these textbooks, access various resources that are available nowadays, and help our students to access these type of things that are available. This is very important thing you should bear in mind while you are preparing a lesson plan, while you are planning for a lesson, teaching a lesson to our students. And learner autonomy also there. Don't restrict your child to read only things which are there in the textbook. Let our students access information. If they access information, there are a number of pages available. This information that is available in internet or in various other sources is according to his interest. The information is available there, but we can't provide information that is up to the interest of the students. That's why this information he can access and he can understand it, and with love and affection, with some great motivation, intrinsic motivation, students learn things, and that we call learner autonomy. Learner autonomy refers to a student's ability to set appropriate learning goals and take charge of his or her own learning. Also, however, autonomous learners are dependent upon teachers to create and maintain learning environments that support the development of learner autonomy. That's why, dear student teachers, our teaching should be personalized according to the age, interest, mental level of the student. We should help him to access the information that is available. Within a short while, you can make use of this type of devices in our classrooms, these computers, mobiles in classrooms, in our teaching. That is why we should plan our lesson in such a way to make use of these things and these latest developments in the field of teaching learning process.
The adoption of technology in everyday life has changed the way we do many of our daily tasks. 21st century learners are required to have a very different skill set compared to learners of the past. In traditional learning, students learn not to ask too many questions. Instead, they are required to listen and repeat the expected answers. Currently, most schools still focus on teaching a set of basic skills that do not serve the needs of modern society. Although students must acquire knowledge, learning content is not enough. Today, the meaning of knowing has shifted from being able to remember and repeat information to being able to locate, evaluate, and use information effectively. Today's students need to be fully prepared for successful learning in the information age. They are heading into a busy and competitive world full of uncertainties, joining a workforce that is more mobile and better qualified than ever before, and building careers that span multiple jobs, positions, and skill sets, some of which haven't been invented yet. In response, schools need to make changes in their approach to adequately prepare students with the required 21st century skills. Technology is transforming the ways that people work and relate to each other. which means that learning in schools needs to change to adequately prepare students. Education should be much more about ways of thinking, which involve creative and critical approaches to problem solving and decision making, whilst also emphasizing learning. Education should also introduce ways of working through communicating and collaborating, as well as refining the necessary tools for working. These tools include information literacy and ICT literacy. And last but not least, students need to develop the skills for living in a multifaceted world as an active and engaged citizen with personal and social responsibility. A 21st century learner is able to apply their skills to numerous situations and experiences, gain new competencies, build relationships, and assume new roles. They are capable of constantly adapting, learning, and growing in a fast-changing world influenced by technology. To meet the challenge of preparing students for a life of constant change and constant learning, teachers need to be innovative in their approach. The skills needed for the 21st century must be central to what students are doing in schools. Inquiry-based learning enables teachers to address these skills in a meaningful way with its student-centered approach and real-world applications. Inquiry-based learning prepares students for an uncertain future by providing an education that supports them to actively engage in their learning, to think critically, to communicate in various ways, to collaborate, and to process information.
This is about 21st century learning, dear student teachers. Now let's try to understand what is meant by LASS, Language Acquisition Supporting System. As language teachers, especially language teachers of English, we should bear this in our mind. Language acquisition supporting system is there in every human being. What's meant by language acquisition supporting system? That means this system is there. We help students to make use of this system to learn the language. For example, while we are interacting with children, we speak slowly. We speak deliberately, we speak slowly so that students can understand. We speak with some gestures while we are speaking with children or persons, those who doesn't know our language. We speak slowly so that the person he can understand our language. That system is there. For example, the children may come across, they may commit some errors. Errors are part and parcel of their learning. We correct them. We correct them, and automatically they pick up language. Hence, language acquisition supporting system is there in every human being, because language is biologically triggered or biologically programmed activity that is there in every human being. Hence, every person can learn any language in this world. Hence, we should make our children to best use of language acquisition support system that is there in them to acquire language easily and effectively. And see, here we have textbooks. In our schools, we use textbooks for teaching English. These textbooks, they contain various activities that are to be implemented in the classroom. We have textbooks for primary school children and also high school children. Textbook is one of the tools in the hands of the teacher to use in the classroom to develop language proficiency. In case of primary students, we call the title of the textbook is My English World. In case of high school, our world through English. Hence, this is our world through English class 7, the cover page of our textbook. And while we are preparing a lesson plan, we should make use of various the activities that are there in the textbook in our lesson plan. What are the various aspects that we can include in our lesson plan to develop language proficiency in our students? What's meant by lesson plan? Lesson planning is a vital component of the teaching learning process. It helps the teacher to teach effectively and easily. It helps to use TLM appropriately. It helps to cater different students in our class, above average, below average, and some late bloomers or slow learners. We call slow learners as late bloomers. There may be some slow learners or late bloomers in our classroom. And there are future learners in our classroom. That's why in our classroom, above average students or gifted children may be there, average students may be there, late bloomers may be there. These different types of students are there in our classroom. To help cater their needs, we prepare lesson plan. It helps to reach the objectives more easily and effectively. Proper classroom planning helps teachers organized and on track while teaching. Hence, lesson plan is essential. Planning is essential in every walk of our life, same in the case of teaching also. And a lesson plan is a detailed guide for teaching a lesson. It's a step-by-step guide that outlines the teacher's objectives for what the students will accomplish that day. See, our lesson plan should contain these things. There should be some goals. There should be some activities. What are the activities that we are going to implement in the classroom? What are the materials that we are going to use in the classroom in order to develop a language proficiency in our students? See, the first step in writing a strong lesson plan is objectives. Objective is also known as the goal of your lesson. That's why we have objectives. These objectives are of two types: general objectives and specific objectives. General objectives, long-term objectives. In this context, general objectives are the long-term outcomes you or the organization, that means society, need to achieve. Why do we teach English from class 1 to 10? That is explained in general objective. Why do we teach English to our students at school level? For example, reading is there. Why do we teach reading to our students? Our students should read the information that is there in English in this world and understand that, and he should use that English. They should read and understand that English and use that English information for his further development, for his academic purpose, for his day-to-day life living. Student may go to a bank, he has to fill one form there. At the time he has to read that form and understand that. He needs to what we call install TV. He has to read that information that is there in English, how to install TV. These things, for example, while he is using a medicine, the instructions how to use that medicine is in English. All these things the student should be in the position to read and understand. The student should read information and understand it. That is our general objective. And for that, then we also come across the academic standards. We bear academic standards in our mind while we are teaching English to our students. Our students should listen and understand English. They should speak simple English. They should read and comprehend English information. They should have some knowledge of grammar, and they should know some vocabulary to use language effectively. That means the creative expression. That means they should be in the position to speak or write various things in English. It may be a notice, it may be a poster, it may be a letter, it may be an email. These things are called creative expressions, and the students should have the knowledge of conventions for writing, how to write, how to use capitals and different marks while they are writing. And what are the specific objectives? Just we observe general objective. What is the general objective of teaching reading to our students? Dear student teachers, we teach reading skill to our students by keeping one general objective in our mind to read various things that the student may come across in his day-to-day life and understand that. It may be for professional purpose, it may be for life purpose. Specific objective. How do you write a specific objective? For example, I am teaching animal school lesson to students. How do I write a specific objective for that lesson while I am teaching that lesson to class 3 students? Specific objectives are the precise goals for what you want your students to be able to accomplish after the lesson is completed. For example, you may teach English for 45 minutes. You should have one specific objective. After teaching 45 minutes of my lesson, my students achieve these skills. My students achieve these objectives. These are called specific. For example, how do I write a specific objective while I am teaching the animal school lesson? The animal school lesson is there. I am teaching the animal school lesson to class 3 students. Here, my specific objective is, after teaching 45 minutes, my students read the lesson, the animal school, with comprehension. That is one of my specific objectives. I teach reading passage to my students to help them to identify the main characters. They read animal school lesson, they identify the characters which are there in that lesson. To help them to sequence the ideas in the lesson. That means, what are the various ideas in the lesson, they should be in the position to sequence. These are my specific objectives. After completion of 45 minutes of my lesson, my students can attain these skills. These are known as specific objectives.
The flipped classroom. Let's reverse where traditional homework and lecture take place. Now, I must warn you beforehand, watching this presentation can literally turn your world upside down. The first thing most educators are going to ask is, why flip? Well, here are a couple reasons to consider. With a flipped classroom, the content becomes available to students beyond typical classroom time. Students are now able to access the content anytime. Benefit that comes with viewing content in video format is the ability to stop, pause, play, etc. Students can write down questions about the content at home. Then, when students enter the classroom, they are already prepared to ask these questions to their teacher. When a teacher flips a classroom, that teacher is able to walk around the room. Ultimately, flipping a classroom frees up time for teachers to work with students individually. Now, let's take a quick break to think about how our students are used to acquiring knowledge. Students of today mostly learn from their phones and computers. Students of today are comfortable with the flip model because it's how they usually access knowledge. Lastly, we know some students learn faster than others. Flipping a classroom allows teachers to personalize learning. Now, how do you flip a classroom? What steps should you take? Right now, I'm going to outline an 8-step path that I have successfully used to flip my classroom. Each step is represented with a star. The first step in flipping a classroom begins with the buy-in. Get your students, parents, and administrators on board with the flip model. Step 2. Curate the resources you need to flip a classroom. These are resources for instruction, such as YouTube video, aligned worksheets, quizzes, electronics, etc. Now, moving on to the actual first day of class, classroom management is required for a flipped model, just like a traditional model. Very early on, be sure to spend time and incorporate expectations and procedures, as this learning style may be new. Number 4 is technology training. Teachers need to learn how to curate videos through YouTube channels and create playlists, and students must be able to access and interact with online content. Now we get to the actual flipping. And the number 5 is assign content for homework. Students will access content through videos, hyperdocs, interactive PowerPoints, slides, and much more. Next up, number 6. Students work on problems during class time. Students get to work on the application of skills in class, where a teacher walks around the room and facilitates and helps students as needed. Moving on to number 7, independent learning. With a flipped classroom, students become independent learners and have the ability to move through the curriculum at their own pace. And the last star in the sky, number 8, peer tutoring. Pair up your advanced students who mastered the content beforehand with students having a hard time completing the problems. So, what does it actually look like? The traditional model has students attending school where content is delivered by teachers, and students going home to work on problems. But here we are getting rid of that model and replacing it with a flip model. In the flip model, students work on problems when they are at school, and when students are at home, content is delivered online. Here are a couple tools you may need when flipping a classroom. YouTube will allow you to provide video lessons. Social media can help disseminate content. Devices to access online content. Google Doc links, slides to learn content, and sites to find the content. Readings can be used as well. Right now, I would just like to say thank you.
Students, just you observed a flipped classroom concept. Within a short while, we are going to implement this type of innovative ways of teaching in our classroom. Hence, we should bear all these things, we should learn all these things and plan our lesson. So, flipped class, the main aim of this flipped classroom is to enable each student according to that personalized teaching should be given. So, according to his needs, according to his interest, according to his pace, the lesson should be planned and the material should be provided, support should be given to students. This is the main, to make student independent learner, because we come across various students in the classroom. This different students, they have different the types of intelligence, they have different levels of intelligence, different interests, different attitudes, different aptitudes, different abilities. Hence, in this context, the personalized teaching will be more beneficial. Within a short while, we provide this type of teaching to our students. Hence, we should bear this in our mind, and as budding teachers, we should learn all these things. This flipped classroom means we give some what we call topics only to students. Some themes, for example, themes are there in our English textbook. We give one theme. Let our students read on environment. We provide some information, some links to them, and he will access that knowledge, and he reads that knowledge according to his will and wish and according to his pace. He comes to class. When he comes across any problems or difficulties here and there, he may seek help from the teacher. Teacher solve his problem, further he grow. In this way, the flipped way of classroom are very much beneficial to students to develop. Dear student teachers, we observe there are themes in our textbooks. Let's try to understand how to teach lessons to our students that are there in our classrooms. There are units in our textbooks. Generally, there are 8 units in our textbooks. Each unit is based on one theme. For example, see here, the biodiversity theme is there in 10th class textbook. For example, here for our convenient, the entire that lesson can be divided into 3 parts. That is the pre-reading activities, the reading activities, the post-reading activities. In our classroom, we may take up, in 45 minutes of classroom, we may take up the pre-reading activities, the reading activities and the post-reading activities in our classroom. And you come across style sheet and face sheets in high school textbooks. See, this is style sheet. We call this as style sheet. For example, you take one unit. In that unit, there are 3 reading passages. In that unit, there are different types of activities, vocabulary activities, project works, notices, creative writing activities, grammar activities. Some reading information will be given. For example, there is one unit, unit number 6. That unit is based on biodiversity theme. And in that, there are 3 reading passages. That is known as style sheet. Just you observe, that is called style sheet. Style sheet refers to all the reading passages, that entire theme, that refers to the entire themes. Just you observe the style sheet. See, here this is known as style sheet. It is there at the beginning of the unit. It is related to the entire theme. Biodiversity is the name of the theme. The information that is related to biodiversity is given in that unit in the form of reading passages. How many passages are there, dear student teachers? There are 3 reading passages: A reading, B reading and C reading. A reading, the name of the title of that reading passage is Environment. B reading, or Will the Dreamer Wake. C reading, A Tale of 3 Villages. A Tale of 3 Villagers. These are the 3 reading passages that are there in biodiversity theme, unit number 6 in class 10. Let's understand how to make use of this information in the classroom. See, pre-reading activity, face sheet interaction. Pre-reading activity, we take up face sheet interaction, dear student teachers. See, this is face sheet. The name of that the theme is biodiversity. The name of the lesson is environment. This is face sheet. You observe, pollution is there in the river bank. At the river bank, you find a lot of pollution. You show this picture. This picture develops a lot of thinking process in the mind of the child. See, this is also there in face sheet for the lesson environment, reading passage environment. And you ask various questions. How is the environment here? Do you like this environment, dear student teachers? Just you observed one type of environment in the previous that here you observe this. See the environment here. This environment is filled with pollution. Who is responsible for this pollution? What measures do you suggest to overcome the problem of pollution? How can we prevent pollution at river banks or that water pollution? How can we prevent it? What measures can we take to keep our school environment or our village environment, our home environment free from pollution? In this way, teacher may ask different types of questions by showing picture. Picture is a wonderful potential resource, and it triggers the thinking process of the child. The child's thinking process will be triggered, and many ideas will come out. These ideas will be generated and they will be transformed into language. That's why this picture is known as trigger. And observe here, observe wonderful and potential pictures are there in primary school, primary class textbooks. This is one lesson. The animal school, see the face sheet. This face sheet is also known as trigger. It is at the beginning of the reading passage, the animal school. Teacher shows this. He can generate a wonderful language in students by showing this picture. Teacher shows this picture and he asks some questions. He asks one question, what do you find in this picture, dear students? Teacher may ask that question. Students, they give different words, vocabulary words they may give. Teacher writes those words on the blackboard. What do you find in this picture? You ask that question. You show the picture and ask that question, dear student teachers. Show the picture, ask one question, what do you find in this picture? Students may give many words, write them on the blackboard. See, students they give, they know these words, teacher, headmaster, students, classroom, giraffe, elephant. What do they find in the picture? They give. Sometimes they may give in mother tongue, change them into English, megaphone them into English and write them on the blackboard. Students may give two types of words. Some may be some words of things, we call them as nouns. Some action words, we call them as verbs. These two types of words may be given by the students. Teacher writes those words on the blackboard. It helps the students. It helps the student to develop their vocabulary. After that, encourage them to say all the words. Show the no word should be left. The entire list should be exhausted. And show the picture, elicit words. Then ask some questions. Ask some effective questions. Questions which elicit expressions or feelings of the students. If you are in the position of the headmaster, what would you ask? What would you ask the teacher or students? What would you observe in the classroom? How do you feel about that? In this way, you ask students, let our students involve in that and they attain those characters and involve in that picture, and then the ideas will be generated and they come out and language will be produced by the children in that way. That is a very effective and easy way of generating language in children. Teacher may ask some more questions on the picture. Some more questions on the picture and students give answers. These answers constitute simple description. In this way, you can develop a simple description of that picture. In that way, you can generate language. Hence, face sheet, which we call it as a trigger also. Face sheet is there. It may be in high school or it may be in primary school. Make use of that face sheet. You take 45 minutes of time and use this face sheet, generate language and write it. Let our students write, generate language. That way, description can be developed. Description capacity can be developed in our students. What are the other things that we come across in our textbooks? The second picture is there. There will be two pictures. First picture, just you observe, that is called face sheet. There is second picture is also there in that reading passage. The second picture is related to the listening passages. Dear student teachers, listen to me. It's very, very important. There are listening passages at the end of our textbooks. These listening passages are meant for providing listening exposure to our students. Okay, dear students, teachers, there are some units. For each unit, listening passage is given at the end of the textbook. It is in the form of appendix. Find them, use them, use those listening passages in the classroom. Let our students listen to English. And some listening texts are there. You see, this is one listening text. Appendix, text for listening. Attitude is everything. That is unit 1, that is the listening passage there in 10th class. You see, in animal school lesson, this picture, this is the second picture. This picture, that information is there in listening passage. Hence, student should be instructed to see this picture, and then teacher reads that listening passage, or he may narrate that listening passage. Narration is very, very important. And students attain a wonderful benefit out from narratives. The narrative is a wonderful tool to develop language proficiency in our students. Narrative is an effective tool to teach English to young children, and it appeals children very much. It arouses a great interest on the part of the children, and the narrative develops the vivid mental images in the minds of the children. Then come to reading. First, in reading, for example, first step is called individual reading. Ask them to read you take one paragraph, ask them to read that paragraph individually. Then after that, give instructions. Dear students, open page number 42, read the first paragraph in animal school lesson, and give clear instructions. And after that, individual reading, organize students into groups and ask them to read in groups. We call it as collaborative reading. In collaborative reading, students share their ideas. They learn very well. And scaffold reading. Here in this scaffold reading, teacher asks some questions and help the teacher to locate answers accurately and properly. Locate correct answers and make out correct meanings from the reading passage which the students have read. And here teacher may ask a question and he may say the answer is there in second line, answer is there in third line. In this way, teacher may guide them. Scaffold reading. What is the name of the village? That is there. The name of the village of that person is given in that paragraph. Locate that. The name of the village starts with a capital letter. Find it. That is there in second line. In this way, teacher guides students to locate the answer. And always teacher encourages students, yes, you can read, you can locate answer. You need not understand each and every word in that reading passage. Just imagine, try to understand information. In that way, teacher encourages students, and students can learn and understand, learn how to read. And finally, mind mapping. And teacher asks some questions, students give answers related to the information that they have read on that day. This is called mind mapping. In mind mapping, teacher asks some questions in such a way that entire gist of the day's reading will be elicited, and he may write this information on the blackboard. We call it as mind mapping. Then after that, teacher may read that information, that paragraph with proper pronunciation, and later he may ask some students to read it aloud. And in this way, dear student teachers, we may follow in constructive. There may be some other activities that are there in the textbook. Some vocabulary items may be there. Some discourse developments may be there. These things are there in the classroom, dear, in our textbook, dear student teachers. You may follow them. And dear student teachers, in this way, you may plan a lesson, and you may understand various aspects that are there in our textbooks. They implement those aspects in our classroom teaching and help our students to attain good language proficiency. And finally, I would like to say only one important that information, dear student teachers. Lesson plan is not a rigid one. It is flexible. A lesson plan is flexible thing. you may plan your lesson by keeping the main objectives in view and interest of the students, and lesson plan is flexible thing. It is not a rigid thing, and plan lessons very effectively and make use of various resources outside we come across in our day-to-day life in the classroom, and make use them in the classroom, and impart wonderful language skills to our students, my dear student teachers. I wish you very good luck. Thank you very much.